After weeks of mucking around with EQ profiles and gain staging, I've finally gotten all 4 models from the Rockman X100 modeled in my Helix. So today I'm going to break this video into 2 parts. The first part will be just listening to the sound samples for those that just want to get to the sound samples quick. And then later I'll go into a longer explanation of how we got those tones. So first we're going to start with the clean 2 tone, which is basically a direct guitar signal, highly compressed. So let's take a look at this one. Next up, we have the clean 1 tone. This is similar to the clean 2 tone, except it now runs through a speaker cabinet emulation. This is what's referred to as the complex filter in Tom Scholz original patents. Let's take a listen. Now we have the edge tone. The edge tone introduces a distortion into it, so we have a moderate amount of distortion or crunch, still running through the complex filter to emulate a speaker cabinet. Let's listen to this. Finally, we have the distortion sound. The distortion is a very high gain sound, mainly used for leads. It has an incredible amount of sustain, particularly on the high notes on the guitar. Let's take a listen to this one. Okay, so let's explain how we got these tones. So starting with the clean 2 tone, there's really only a couple things going on. So the first thing is that we have a very aggressive high-pass EQ. And when we say aggressive, it looks like this curve. It at 20 hertz, it's down negative 60 dB up to nearly 0 dB at 20k hertz with a boost around 5k. This is very aggressive, and the reason for that is that it takes out all those low frequencies before we run into a very aggressive compressor, which is running a fast attack time at 0.2 milliseconds, 50 millisecond release time, and a 4-to-1 ratio. What this does is allows the compressor to really focus on those mid and high frequencies and allow the low frequencies to not have as much effect. It's then compensated, coming back out with a little bit more of a high boost and then a significant low boost to bring up that low end. So looking at the patch, I've created impulse responses for these EQs. So you'll see that the first one is the Rockman 11 EQ, and this kind of comes from his original patent schematics of block diagrams. We use gain stages because this EQ has such a significant roll-off like this. There's not much signal coming out of this EQ because it is so extreme. So we boost it before it goes in, we boost it before it comes out, so we have enough gain to actually hit our compression and have the compression work. After we get out of the compression, we have another impulse response, 13, which corresponds to the Rockman, and then our final low boost, again, corresponding to what's used in the Rockman. And then just a standard chorus and plate reverb on the end to emulate what was used in the Rockman. Clean 1 is very similar, except that it now adds what Tom Scholz referred to as the complex filter, and this is a stage of multiple filters with peaks and emphasis on the low end that emulates a speaker cabinet, and it's designed to work with that aggressive high-end or low-end roll-off at the beginning. So these are the stages we go through. Again, our aggressive high pass, compressor. We have, again, our high EQ boost, and then we go through this complex EQ. So in the Helix, it looks like this. The same gain stages, the same IRs that we saw in Clean 2, same compressor, coming out with the same post-compression boost, and then into the complex filter, which is now the number 17, as it shows in the patent module. The Edge adds a little bit more complexity. We now are including a distortion in here, and a moderate amount of distortion. So our initial stages look the same. We have our aggressive high pass, we have our compressor, boost. Then we kind of go into a couple more EQ stages. So we'll have a mid-band pass, which gives us a little bit of a mid-boost, and this is according to the original patents. Our distortion, which is really just a very simple op-amp diode clipping distortion is what was used in the Rockman. And then a little post EQ that brings down the highs because that distortion adds a lot of highs. And then again, the complex filter. Now, we don't have the same type of distortion in the Helix. However, one of the distortion pedals has a very, very similar schematic, so we use that. So again, same thing, gain staging, the roll off. This one is disabled. I found I didn't need it because of the distortion being used. Gain, compressor is the same. So what I've used is actually the classic distortion in the legacy components. And this is an early model based on the Proco Rat, which is very similar to what was used in the X100. It includes more of its own tone shaping, so I did not have to do some of this mid-band and then post EQ because that's already in that distortion unit. Coming out of there, then we go back into our complex EQ. I have a simple low and high cut after here. It's disabled. Depends on the guitar I'm using. Sometimes I want to put that in there just for my own tastes. It's disabled for this. And again, our chorus and reverb. The distortion model is essence pretty much the same as the Edge, just with higher gain. So we'll have our gain stage. We'll have our first high pass. You'll notice I'll have 2 gain blocks in here to kind of give us this extra gain before we hit the compressor. Again, same compressor. We go into the same distortion unit we used on the Edge. We're just driving it a little harder this time. Out of the distortion, we come into the post-distortion EQ. I have rolled the lows off a little bit, and again, this is just my own personal taste, depending on the guitar I'm using. I may or may not include that low cut on there. We go into the complex EQ. Once again, I have a post EQ, and this is just for my own preferences. I feel like it's a little darker, and this is likely based on the fact that we don't have the exact distortion that the soloist has. So I'm boosting the highs around 3K, and then again the chorus and the reverb. So you can find these patches on the Line 6 custom tone portal. There'll be a link down in the description, and out there I'll also have a link to the IRs used on this. Not a whole lot of use for this other than just a trip down memory lane, but I thought it would be fun to try and rebuild this and then share with everybody the process of doing it. So, happy noodling. See ya.